नमस्ते जग्गी सर, कैसे हो?
नमस्ते आर्यन जी, कैसे हो?
मैं बिल्कुल बढ़िया सर, धन्यवाद आने के लिए।
माय
आ,
प्लेजर।
जग्गी सर मेरे पहले बॉस थे। स्वराज्य मैगजीन में जब काम शुरू किया सर, एक ही दिन ज्वाइन किया था हमने,
हाँ
1 दिसंबर 2015 को।
हाँ हाँ हाँ।
तो आपने इतने बड़े बड़े जर्नलिस्ट जो आजकल हो चुके हैं उनके, वो आपके अंडर में काम किए हैं, जर्नलिज्म सीखा है, तो मैं कैसा स्टूडेंट था?
आप तो बहुत ही क्रिएटिव थे, राइटर आप।
मैं अपनी तारीफ खुद ही करवा रहा हूँ आपसे।
नहीं नहीं, माने आप सोच समझ के लगते थे, इसलिए मुझे बहुत पॉजिटिव लगा उसमें। और आप अपना रिसर्च करते थे, जो आई मीन आप मेरी तरफ फ्रीक्वेंट तो नहीं लिखते थे, लेकिन वो अच्छी है। स्टार्टिंग टाइम में अगर जब आप बहुत लिखना शुरू कर दें तो फिर बहुत सरफेस में चले जाएगा। इसलिए अगर डीपली कुछ लिखना चाहते हैं, थोड़ा रिसर्च सोच समझ के करना पड़ता है। वही मुझे अच्छा लगा आपके बारे में।
थैंक यू सर। अब मैंने अपनी तारीफ तो करवा ली। आपकी दूसरी बुक धार्मिक नेशन, स्क्रीन पे फ्लैश कर देंगे जो बुक कवर है, काफ़ी अच्छी बुक है सर। जो आर्टिकल्स आपने लिखे हैं पिछले 5-6 सालों में स्वराज्य में, उसका एक सार है। धार्मिक नेशन का जो आपने एक कॉन्सेप्ट लिखा है, इसमें मैं एक लाइन पढ़ना चाहूँगा कि ये आपने लिखा क्यों। तो इसमें आपने लिखा है, द रीज़न फॉर टाउटिंग द आइडिया ऑफ अ धार्मिक नेशनहुड और हिंदू राष्ट्र इज द एब्जेक्ट फेलियर ऑफ सेक्युलरिज्म इन इंडिया।
हाँ,
तो इसके बारे में थोड़ा बताइए।
देखिए बात जैसे सैमुअल हंटिंगटन ने लिखा था कि हु आर वी, दे ट्राई टू डिफाइन वेस्टर्न सिविलाइजेशन क्या है, उनकी संस्कृति क्या है। उन्होंने एक कंक्लूजन पे पहुंचा, हम जूडियो क्रिश्चियन सिविलाइजेशन है और अमेरिका उसके एक स्पेशल भाग है। लेकिन हम लोग ये कभी हमको अपने आप को डिफाइन करना नहीं जानते थे। हम कौन हैं, कहाँ से आए, कहाँ पहुँच गए, वो अगर हम अपने आप को माने सेल्फ डिफाइन नहीं करेंगे तो आप ऐसे ही भटकते रह जाके हम सेकुलर हैं कि ना। प्रॉब्लम यही है कि सेक्युलर शब्द जो है इंडिया के सिचुएशन बहुत ही गलत है, क्योंकि सेकुलर वर्ड यूरोपियन हिस्ट्री से आता है, जहाँ पे राजा और चर्च की लड़ाई होती थी, दोनों के पास आर्मी थे और दोनों समझते थे कि मैं सुप्रीम हूँ। उसको उस लड़ाई को बंद करने के लिए उन्होंने सेक्युलरिज्म इंट्रोड्यूस किया, जहाँ पे वो राजा टेम्पोरल माने आर्थिक या और कोई जगह काम कर सकता है और टेम्पल स्पिरिचुअल काम कर सकता है। लेकिन वेस्ट में भी सेक्युलर वर्ड अभी रेलेवेंट नहीं है। आप इंग्लैंड को देखें तो वो तो जो राजा हैं अभी चार्ल्स, वो तो हेड ऑफ द चर्च भी हैं। वेटिकन देखें जिसका यूएन मेंबरशिप है, वो भी चर्च और स्टेट दोनों एक ही है। अमेरिका देखिए, फर्स्ट अमेंडमेंट में उन्होंने सेपरेट कर दिया कि स्टेट शैल नॉट डू एनीथिंग टू एस्टैब्लिश रिलीजन। उसका समझते हैं कि वो सेक्युलर है, लेकिन आप डॉलर पे देखिए तो लिखा है इन गॉड वी ट्रस्ट। अभी सेक्युलर और गॉड कहाँ घुस गए उसमें। दूसरी बात है, उन्होंने एक लॉ संगठित किया है जो USCIRF, CIRF, हाँ, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स काउंसिल फॉर इंटरनेशनल रिलीजियस फ्रीडम। अच्छा, तो लेकिन ये लॉ जो है US में इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं किया जाता है, ये सिर्फ US के बाहर किया जाता है। तो आप कहते हैं कि स्टेट रिलीजन से अलग है, लेकिन US के बाहर हम इसको माने सबके ऊपर ठोंप देंगे। यही प्रॉब्लम है। इसलिए ये सेक्युलरिज्म वर्ड जो है वो इरेलेवेंट है।
और US स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट के ऑफिशियल्स भी शायद उसमें,
हाँ, उसमें है। सो स्टेट डायरेक्टली उसमें घुस गए हैं और वो अपने फॉरेन पॉलिसी के मुताबिक उनको डायरेक्शन भी दे सकते हैं। तो वोटिंग मेंबर नहीं है, लेकिन इन्फ्लुएंस तो कर सकते हैं, पैसा वहाँ से ही आ रहा है। सो एक बात हुआ है। दूसरी बात ये है कि इंडिया में अभी के जो दो मेजर कम्युनिटीज़ हैं, हिंदूज और मुस्लिम्स, उसमें मुस्लिम्स डोंट बिलीव इन सेक्युलरिज्म। उनके प्रॉफिट तो मिलिट्री कमांडर, पॉलिटिकल लीडर और रिलीजियस लीडर थे। तो उनके इसमें तो सेपरेशन ऑफ मॉस्क फ्रॉम स्टेट तो होता ही नहीं है। और हमारी जो परंपरा है उसमें कहते हैं कि पुरुषार्थ में धर्म, अर्थ, काम, मोक्ष। सो ऑल 4 things are to be decided at the individual level and depending on your situation. If you are a Raja, you have a Rajdharm, but you also have to think of other things. So the point is, it is not relevant. We don't think that this temporal is separate from the spiritual, not in the Islamic sense, but in the Dharmic sense. We believe that these are balances you have to achieve in life at each individual level based on your responsibility. If you are a husband, you have to do your dharma as a family man. स्त्री धर्म है, पुरुष धर्म है, राज धर्म है, whatever it is. So this word secularism कहाँ से घुसा दिया, वो सबको जेल में डाल के 1975 में घुसा दिया, इसलिए वो रेलेवेंट नहीं है. इफ़ यू लुक एट द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डिबेट्स, उसमें कभी सेक्युलर का बहुत कुछ चर्चा हुई थी, लेकिन दे डिसाइडेड दे विल नॉट पुट इट इन, क्योंकि इंडिया बाय डेफिनेशन the only word relevant to India is the word plural. माने we accept multiple ideas and we give you a right to have differences, but we will not exclude anybody on that basis. So this was an inclusive context that goes beyond religion. You know, so even like चारवाक जो है, उनको तो religion में तो belief ही नहीं है, but they could be included because you are plural. So वो idea भी चल जाएगा. So secularism is ridiculous in the concept of dharma because dharma is about including. You know, if you look at the Rig Veda, the last verse talks about honoring all the gods, right? Which means that even though हम आपस में झगड़ते रहेंगे, लेकिन हमारे gods को हम dishonor नहीं करेंगे. Whereas Abrahamic religious में वही problem है कि the Romans जब Christianity आई रोम में, तो Romans did not have a problem with Christ, but Christ had a problem with Roman gods. So उनका ये fundamental difference between a pre-Abrahamic civilization which were more dharmic as opposed to post-Abrahamic, that is post-Christian, post-Islamic. That's when the problem of people being divorced from the idea of gods, and they have a binary system of gods. My God or your devil. That's the only two ways. You don't have anything in between or outside it. So that is the fundamental problem why I said dharma. You have to look at it from this angle, and secularism is the wrong word for it.
एक सेक्युलरिज्म तो एक प्रॉब्लम हो गया कि उसकी वजह से हमको एक धार्मिक नेशन और मे बी अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन दैट वेयर द धर्म इज इनश्राइंड. लेकिन इसमें आपने एक बहुत अच्छी बात की है कि जो हमारी लैंग्वेज है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की वही एलियन है. और आपने आर्टिकल 26 का एक बहुत अच्छा एग्जाम्पल दिया है कि वहाँ पे डिनोमिनेशन का यूज़ होता है और यहाँ पे संप्रदाय. तो वो कॉनोटेशंस जो दोनों वर्ड्स की हैं वो अलग अलग हैं. तो हमारा जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है उसकी वजह से जो इंग्लिश में लिखा गया है उसकी वजह से भी काफ़ी प्रॉब्लम्स हमारे में इंटरप्रिटेशंस में आ गई हैं. तो उसके बारे में थोड़ा बताइए.
हाँ, बात यह है कि हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का इंटेंशन गलत नहीं था, क्योंकि जिन लोगों ने ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एग्री किया 1949 में और वी एस्टैब्लिश्ड इन फ्रॉम 1950, उन्होंने क्या किया, सब कुछ डिस्कस किया. वो लोग कॉलोनियल माइंडसेट से तभी निकल रहे थे. वो लोग खुद धार्मिक थे, लेकिन वो कॉलोनियल डिस्कोर्स को अपना लिया था. इसलिए वो जब उन्होंने इंग्लिश में सब डिस्कशन करके ये सब किया और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को पहले इंग्लिश में लिखा, तो इंग्लिश में पहले लिखकर उसको हिंदी में ट्रांसलेट करना उसका अलग अर्थ होता है, और रिवर्स करने से आपको दूसरा कोई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन आ जाता है सेम आइडियाज लेके. यू नो, लाइक प्रियम्बल में हमने लिखा इक्वालिटी, फ्रैटर्निटी, वो सब लिख दिया, वो फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन का वहाँ से घुसड़ दिया. हमारे इसमें क्या होता है, धर्म अर्थ होना चाहिए सत्य, न्याय, अंत्योदय. और अगर आप जातिवादियों से लड़ना चाहते हैं तो आपको वर्ण जाति मिलना चाहिए, वो कास्ट मेंशन नहीं करना चाहिए था. क्योंकि हमारा प्रॉब्लम क्या है, वर्ण और जाति, राइट. अगर उसको सुधारना चाहते हैं तो वर्ण जाति की बात कीजिए ना. वो उनका कास्ट जो पोर्चुगीज टर्म है उसको घुसा दिया, और आर्टिकल 17 में आपने लिख दिया का अनटचेबिलिटी इज फॉरबिडन. वो ठीक है, लेकिन वर्ण जाति में ऊंच नीच नहीं हुई तो वही लिखना था ना आपको. वो आपने उल्टा लिख दिया कि कास्ट हैज़ टू बी दिस थिंग. और आर्टिकल 25(2) में एक और प्रॉब्लम है कि उसमें क्या लिखा है कि इन ऑर्डर टू अलाउ say people from the oppressed classes to enter temples and public places, state can intervene. The problem is you're given a blank check. अभी अनटचेबिलिटी या इसको रिमूव करने के लिए मैं हर जगह घुस जाऊंगा, स्टेट घुस जाएगा. 1 लाख मंदिर अभी नेशनलाइज हो चुके हैं जो पब्लिक सेक्टर में है. जैसे कि अभी एयर इंडिया को आपको रद्दी में बेचना पड़ा, अभी वो टेम्पल को ऐसे ही कर रहे हैं. अभी जो लोग मंदिर में मानते नहीं हैं, डीएम के एक्चुअली एंटी हिंदू हैं ज़्यादातर, उनको मंदिर देता है. जो पुट द इंग्लिश में एक टर्म है, पुट द फॉक्स इन चार्ज ऑफ द हेन हाउस. अगर आप इफ यू गिवन फॉक्स को आप मुर्गी देखने को बोलेंगे तो वो क्या करेगा, वही कर रहा है। सो वो आर्टिकल 25(2) से ये सब घुस गए टेम्पल में। और अब भी हम जब राम मंदिर कर रहे हैं, वो ऑफकोर्स सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑर्डर से आया है, इसलिए हमको स्टेट में इन्वॉल्वमेंट करना था, लेकिन 5-10 साल से आपको एग्जिट करना पड़ेगा, आपको डिवोटीज को प्राइमरी रोल देनी पड़ेगी, जिससे इट मूव्स अवे फ्रॉम स्टेट ओनरशिप।
नहीं तो ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि कल को मान लो समाजवादी पार्टी की सरकार आ जाती है, तो क्या पता वो आजम खान जैसे बंदे को वहाँ का इंचार्ज बना दे, तो तब क्या करोगे आप?
वही आंध्रा में वही हो भी रहा है। वो जो जगन रेड्डी, जिनके पार्टी बहुत सारे क्रिश्चियंस हैं, उनके अंकल जो उन कहते हैं कि वो हिंदू हैं, हो सकता है, मुझे मालूम नहीं है, घर जाके देखने से ही मालूम पड़ेगा। लेकिन मैं क्या बोलता हूँ कि उनको आपने तिरुपति TTD में बिठा दिया चेयरमैन। हाँ, हो सकता है वो शायद धार्मिक हो सकते हैं, लेकिन एक क्रिश्चियन चीफ मिनिस्टर को क्या ऐसे करना चाहिए? और उसको क्या तिरुपति का फ्यूचर डिसाइड करना चाहिए? नहीं। सो द राइट टू प्रोपगेट, जो अपना धर्म को प्रोपगेट कर सके, वो तो इट हैज़ बीन रिमूव्ड फ्रॉम हिंदूज, बिकॉज वो टेम्पल पे आप बैठे, उसने यू हैव राइट टू प्रे, दैट इज़ ट्रू, आप आके उधर पूजा कर सकते हैं। लेकिन अगर टेम्पल प्रॉपर्टी को आपको प्रोपगेट करना है तो हिंदुओं को ही कंट्रोल करना चाहिए, नहीं ताकि आप लोग दलित को ट्रीट करें और प्रिवेंट कन्वर्शन, वो सब तो आप कर नहीं सकते हैं, क्योंकि स्टेट अगर करना चाहता है तो उन्हें रोज एवरी ईयर दे मस्ट गिव अ रिपोर्ट सेइंग दैट वी ब्रॉट सो मेनी पीपल बैक टू द हिंदू फोल्ड। वो तो नहीं है, उसमें नहीं है। वो सिर्फ कहते हैं कि मैंने अब इतना पूजा किया, ये महोत्सव किया, वो सब किया है, वो ठीक है। और लेकिन लोग पैसा तो उसका बाप का पैसा थोड़ी है, वो तो हमारा पैसा जा रहा है उधर और वो कर रहे हैं।
सही बात है।
लेकिन हमारा सोसाइटी का प्रायोरिटीज अभी बदल गए हैं। अभी वी हैव टू वर्क ऑन कन्वर्शन एरियाज, prevent exits from Hinduism. Hinduism has been stupid, where the difference between Abrahamic and Hinduism is that Hindus
मैं इसमें एक पैराग्राफ पढ़ूं आपकी बुक में से, जो थोड़ा सा इसको कैप्चर कर लेगा कि किस तरीके से अब्राहमिक रिलीजन फंक्शन करते हैं। आपने लिखा है जैसे बोथ क्रिश्चियनिटी एंड इस्लाम but not Judaism, which has this redeeming feature of not seeking to impose itself on the unwilling. So both Christianity and Islam are pursuing numbers like fast-moving consumer goods. Companies seek market share. How can this attempt be called religion by any stretch of imagination? This pursuit of religious market share would make Unilever or Procter & Gamble as worthy of religious faith as the two Abrahamic ones. If the reduction of God to an FMCG product is not debasement of the idea of God, then what is?
Exactly. अभी लेकिन क्या करें? That is the nature of our context. So we have to also try and see that we don't lose Hindus.
Market share.
Yeah, that, not market share नहीं.
Religious market share.
हाँ, उसको नहीं जो हैं उनको तो रखना चाहिए वापस ना. उसके लिए आपको you have to be a little bit of सेल्स पिच करना पड़ता है. क्योंकि उसमें क्या है ना, what they have understood is that how to segment the market. माने वो जानते हैं कि at the mass level what do people need? They need food, security and all, like Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs for human beings. Ours is a level 5 where Hinduism, Buddhism have that high level of metaphysics where you talked about self-actualization. लेकिन वो स्टेज तभी पहुंचेंगे जब आपको बेसिक प्रॉब्लम का, फूड, क्लोथिंग, शेल्टर का अगर प्रॉब्लम नहीं है तो वो सो इसलिए टू कीप पीपल सी एवरेस्ट में अगर जाना चाहते हैं अप टू बेस कैंप आपको सबकी ज़रूरत है. आई मीन जो लोग लगेज उठाएंगे, शेरपा चाहिए, गधे को भी ले जाना पड़ेगा उधर, राइट. वहाँ पे बेस कैंप पे आ गए, फिर बाद में आप पीक जाते हैं, वो सेल्फ एक्चुअलाइजेशन है. वो अपने आप को खुद ऊपर जाना पड़ेगा. वहाँ वो 20 शेरपा आपके साथ लगेज नहीं लेके आएंगे, ठीक है. सिमिलरली एट हिंदुइज्म बेस कैंप तक लाने के लिए आपको कुछ करना पड़ेगा. इसलिए मैं कहता हूँ कि उनको हाउ टू कीप देम देयर, यू नीड अ सर्टन मिशनरी एक्टिविटी देयर. नहीं तो यू लूज द बॉटम एंड देन वेयर विल यू गो? ओनली 20 fellows will go to capable of reaching the top, then there is no point. The point is you need to bring everybody to the base camp first. उसके लिए economic thing is very important, where I think large parts of the Modi agenda are focused on that, to make sure that you are there. Let's not forget that. So that's one part. The other thing is these people, despite the fact that there is not much poverty there, they have still not given up that mindset. See, for us, for self-defense, we have to do it. In their case, they should be actually thinking of how to make a great human being out of the Christians they have or the Muslims they had. Instead of that, they are concentrating on just converting people for no end. So they are playing politics. They are not into religion anymore. So they want numbers. So those religions have become about politics and power. They are not about spirituality and religion anymore.
Actually, there is a book on RSS. I forgot the author's name. I think Anderson. Who is that guy? Brotherhood in. So that he has quoted Narendra Modi, who says that economic development is at the center of Hindutva.
Yes, because as I said, you have to reach the base camp where everybody has all the basics in life. If you actually see today, the core of Hindutva is not upper caste anymore. It is more OBCs. And why did OBCs come there? Because Mandal enabled a whole lot of OBCs to actually come into the mainstream. They were able to pull themselves up, many of them. So now they feel more committed to the idea of Hindutva than things. So now you need to bring the SC and ST into that group where they feel that they are now equal partners in the larger dharmic idea called Hindutva. And then they can do that. So which in that sense, Modi is doing absolutely the right thing. I think you definitely need another at least 5 years or more where we move out of basic poverty into aspirational status. Once you do that, your dharmic identity is part of the aspirational status. And why did Ambedkar not go out of the four key dharmic religions? Because he felt that Dalits would be denationalized. He said, I don't want to become a Christian or a Muslim because that means you'll get denationalized. It has nothing to do with this nation and people who are core to this nation. Dalits did a lot to protect Hinduism at a stage when the upper castes were converting for their own narrow reasons. So I think he realized that, and that is one of the reasons where he tried to keep them within the dharmic fold, even though he was angry with Hinduism for the treatment meted out to Dalits. So that's the key thing, that you now have to renationalize them in terms of thinking in terms of the larger Hindu unity. And for that, the economics is key. Without, Gandhi also said, for a poor man, food is God. Vivekananda ji also said the same thing, that no point in talking about Vedanta and things like that when that fellow's belly is empty. So he said, let's get there, then we talk about the other things.
You talk about 5 asymmetries, which are very interesting. And the result of that is that Hinduism, compared to Abrahamic religions, Christianity and Islam, it's very easy to leave in Hinduism. But the difficulty is in getting back converts or reconversion or even getting new converts. Whereas the asymmetry in Islam and Christianity is that it's very difficult to leave, but it's very easy to convert to.
Correct.
So there are 5 asymmetries that you have mentioned. If you can highlight those.
This I mentioned in the context of love jihad, I think.
Yes.
Because see, when you're fundamentally oriented externally towards increasing your number, which is like more like politics rather than religion, then what happens is every time you're used to, I remember a story told to me by, I think, one RSS guy. He was working in a company, he went to the US. And after they finished all their business and all, that his host was a Christian, was driving him to the airport. Then suddenly he popped the questions, why didn't you become a Christian? You're a good guy. So they said, look, I belong to the Sangh and all. No way I'm going to become a Christian. Therefore, I said, oh no, I tried, in my church. They expect that we will not get salvation unless we bring others into the fold. So the Abrahamic religions are constructed like Ponzi schemes. That is pyramid scheme. So the more you widen the base, the salvation of the higher people who came in earlier depends on those. So it's a Ponzi scheme which will collapse at some point. But the point is, at that point when it is still growing, it's a huge threat to everybody else. So, and the second thing is, because the focus is so much on entry rather than exit and preventing exit, there's a film called Hotel California, where everybody could enter but nobody could leave. It's like mafia. अंदर घुस तो सकते हो, लेकिन एक बार अगर निकलने की करेगा तो बस कहीं bang. So same problem. Whereas Hindus actually, as far as possible, they try to prevent exit. But the point is, some parts of our Varna Jati system, and also which Savarkar talked about, the 7 things from which you need freedom, that is crossing the ocean and Jati, Bandi, all those things. Our problem is once somebody exists, the ecosystem closes for him. Or else we would not have, see, when Tipu went and forced conversion and you made them eat beef or circumcise them, right? Now, I'm sure after Tipu was gone, all these guys in the first generation would have wanted to come back. But we did not accept them. So that was a huge crime. Same thing happened during the Mopla revolt. A lot of same things happened as under Tipu. But we did not accept them because one minute you consume beef, you're gone. It is ridiculous. So I think we need to open the gates and make sure that we develop an ecosystem. See, when in a Christian system and a Islamic system, the convert gets a huge amount of support in the initial stages till he becomes a regular practicing Christian or a Muslim, right? So the whole community will come and behave very well with you. They'll help you set up this thing. If you have business, they'll try and give you business. Here तो उल्टा हो जाता है. एक बार निकल गया तो बस जा. I mean, this was okay when your numbers are large, but at this point when demography is changing, if you do not change your ecosystem to be welcoming, either on the Ghar Wapsi side, Ghar Wapsi is a little limited because basically you're saying that only people who left us should come back. The fact is, dharmic ideas are crucial to the world to succeed. So that the last 2 things is, of course, the way Christians and this thing treat new converts and their children. Meaning, who is a Christian, they decide in advance. If there is, say, an inter-religious marriage, the first thing the church will say is, if you want a church wedding, you have to convert. And even if in first generation they say, okay, remain what you want, they will say, will your children be brought up this thing, Christian? That's very important. In Islam, if you know, Nassim Taleb has said how actually it's a one-way street, because if your mother is Muslim, your children are Muslim. Your father, you cannot marry a non-Muslim anyway. So all those things ensure, those asymmetries don't exist in Hinduism, which is far more freer. But our attitude to exits is a problem. So we need to see that entry and exit. We need to allow more entries. Some people will always come and go based on individual needs. But if you're not welcoming, you have a problem. So that thing is something we need to fundamentally correct.
जब हम कन्वर्जन्स की बात करते हैं कि हमको अपने नंबर्स बढ़ाने चाहिए कि एसिमेट्री की वजह से ओवर द जनरेशन्स, हमको अभी लगता है कि नहीं ये कुछ नहीं है, ये बस 1-2 शादियां होती हैं, लव जिहाद, ये सब कुछ नहीं है, इग्नोर करने की कोशिश करते हैं. डेमोग्राफिक्स की वजह से कंसर्न जो है उसको भी इग्नोर किया जाता है. उसके बारे में भी एक प्रश्न तो उठेगा ही कि आपसे पूछेंगे कि क्यों कन्वर्जन करना है, हमारे इतने सारे नंबर्स हैं, हम तो 100 करोड़ हैं, तो हमको और क्यों बढ़ाना है नंबर. तो इसके बारे में बताइए कि डेमोग्राफिक का जो चैलेंज है, क्या ये सच में है या लोग ऐसे बोलते हैं अरे 2060 तक तो कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, अगर पॉपुलेशन का फिगर्स देखें, परसेंटेज देखें उस तरीके से तो हिंदू ही मेजॉरिटी में रहने वाले हैं.
से हमारे प्रॉब्लम्स है कि मैथमेटिक्स का जन्म इधर हुआ था और कंपाउंडिंग प्रिंसिपल हम जानते हैं, जो राजा बोल रहा था ना कि 64 स्क्वायर से वो एक्सपोनेंशियल ग्रोथ जो कहते हैं ना, कंपाउंडिंग. सो रेट ऑफ इंक्रीज भले ही कम हो, से 0.11% हो, लेकिन ओवर जनरेशन्स वो क्या होता है कि वो completely changes the demography. So the whole of Middle East, whole of North Africa was Christian when Islam started spreading. Islam first defeated them in battle, but Christians actually collaborated with them in their own destruction. How did they do that? Because they initially the Muslims targeted the Jews. So the Christians were very happy. So they said, हाँ ये भी हमारे ही बंदे हैं, इसलिए they allowed intermarriage and all. But once you intermarry, your demography changes, then you become a Muslim. So the whole of North Africa, West Asia was largely Christian at the point Islam started spreading. Over generations, they reduced Christians to a minority. In Egypt, you know, the Copts were huge, but now they have become a shrinking minority. So that's the problem. So we don't realize the problem. So this Dilli Dur Ast is not going to prevent you from losing demographically.
Lebanon जैसा हाल हो जाता है.
Correct.
You can't even govern the country.
Yeah. So the only thing saving us is because we are so diverse, it's far more difficult to convert. But now the technologies for conversion have been learnt well by both Christians and Islamists. So earlier I think they failed because they didn't understand this society of diversity. So they just thought you have to spread the gospel and talk about Christ and great, and people will follow. People said, problem with Christ, but we don't see why we should convert. But now they've understood. They can play one caste against the other and say, "Oh, aisa hai, you better come to Christ." And after you got this guy, you'll go and tell the other guy that, look, you also convert, then you will get all our benefits.
एंड सेम कास्ट में अगर जब लोग कन्वर्ट होते हैं तो वो देखते भी हैं कि इसको कितने बेनिफिट्स मिल रहे हैं, स्कूल एडमिशन, कॉलेज में एडमिशन,
Absolutely.
अलग अलग तरह की.
So they have now understood the technology of conversion better. I mean, when they first came to India, they didn't realize. And because we were not monocultural, it also made it slow progress for them. Like throughout the 300 years of British colonialism, very few conversions happened. But look at what happened in Iran. The minute you become monocultural, see, the original idea of monotheism is not Islamic but Zoroastrian. They were the guys with whom we split, the Devas and the
12,000 साल पहले.
Yeah, Ahura Mazda is Asura Mazda probably. But the thing is, the minute they became monotheistic and monocultural, it became very, very easy for Islam to take over. Basically, after all, there is only one God. So yeah, this is the right one. So you come. So whereas it didn't happen in India because we didn't have that problem. We have theodiversity, they had theomonoculture. And so any monotheistic, monopolistic religion, which is what Aravindan calls them. So monotheism itself is not the problem. But the minute you become monotheism,
Polistic.
Yeah, so then it's very easy to convert. You just need to convert some elite and the whole thing is gone. So India was prevented by that, but now they know how to use the caste system, the Varna Jaati fault lines, to sort of spread their message by saying first we'll get one lot, then we'll try the other. That was the thing.
ये वर्णा जाति का भी इंटरेस्टिंग है सर, क्योंकि जो लोग मॉडर्नाइजिंग हिंदुत्व की बात करते हैं वो यूजुअली रिजेक्ट करते हैं. जैसे सावरकर भी दे वांटेड टू कि ये जाति को ख़त्म ही कर दो, इस पूरे सिस्टम को. बट वी नो दैट वेरेवर इट हैज़ बीन ट्राइड इट हैज़ रिजल्टेड इन डिज़ास्टर. तो जाति तो ख़त्म नहीं, वर्णा तो वैसे ही कुछ नहीं बचा है अभी. जाति का है, जाति इज़ बेसिकली ट्राइबल इंस्टिंक्ट, और वो ख़त्म करना बहुत मुश्किल है. इफ़ यू डिस्ट्रॉय दैट समथिंग एल्स विल टेक प्लेस. फॉर एग्जांपल द्रविडियन आइडियोलॉजी. तो इस तरीके से अगर कन्वर्जन की बात की हमने कि कन्वर्जन करना चाहिए, बट आपकी बहुत ट्रोलिंग हुई थी जब आपने कहा था कि कास्ट में कन्वर्ट करो रादर देन रिलीजन में, क्योंकि हिंदुइज्म में कन्वर्ट करना इज़ डिफ़िकल्ट बट कास्ट में कन्वर्ट करना इज़ ईजी. तो इसके बारे में थोड़ा बताइए, इस पर काफ़ी ट्रोलिंग हुई थी आपकी.
नहीं हो सकता है, लेकिन देखिए, आई डोंट क्लेम दैट आई एम राइट इन एवरीथिंग. ऑल आई एम सेइंग इज
बट इट मेक्स सेंस.
या बिकॉज सी, इफ कास्ट वांट टू ग्रो, they have to find a way for entry and exit, right? So if castes seek to expand their power or their spiritual base, it is logical for them to expand, right? Sabko le lo, then see, Jaati will be a reality in any part of the world. Jaati is a social group. But there are no hierarchical constructs. मैं ऊपर हूँ तो आप नीचे हैं, ऐसा नहीं होता है, right? Only when you bring Varna into the Jaati idea, which is what the British colony successfully did and tried to force fit all Jatis into one of these 4 categories, that they found that half the time they couldn't do it, but they shoved them in anyway. But once you create that, people start thinking that हाँ मैं इस वर्ण में हूँ.
अभी भी तो वही हो गया है ना, ऑफिशियली अनरिजर्व्ड कैटेगरी है, एक ओबीसी है, एक एससी है, एक एसटी, 4 वर्ण हो गई
है ना. तो in order to defeat the so-called caste system, we have again created varnas. And don't think that jatis don't exist abroad. They do exist very much. If you actually look at endogamy all over the world, you will find 90% of human beings marry 90% of the time within their own social groups. You don't find whites and blacks repeatedly getting intermarried, right? So that issue remains. Because anthropology mein the first line you hear is man is a social animal. Yeah. So social animal means creating social groups. When you create a social group, the social group defines who is us, who is not us.
True.
So jatis will be there. It's a question of how you manage the jatis.
तो जाति का कैसे कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं? अभी एक बात और इंटरेस्टिंग हो रही है कि जाति की जनगणना हो रही है. अब बिहार में देखिए चालू हो गई है कास्ट सेंसस. तो उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट होने वाला है? एंड इफ यू से कि इंक्रीज करना है, एक इंस्टिंक्ट रहेगा कि हमको बढ़ाना है अपना नंबर. तो उसका पॉलिटिक्स पे भी एक अलग असर पड़ने वाला है.
No, I am looking at it from a Jaati and preservation of your own cultural heritage. Because see, Hinduism is often a sum of the parts with a nebulous whole. That is, we all broadly agree to be categorized as Hindus. But our core identity is defined by our social group. And Hinduism is actually preserved in these social groups rather than in any theoretical construct outside the social group. So every Jati actually has its own sense of what is Hinduism. You know, so my thing is, logically you must strengthen them so that we continue to be diverse and strong rather than become monocultural. You know, so I think what we need to do is find mechanisms to solve caste conflicts, Jati conflicts. यार कोई दलित आ रहा है, उसको शादी में घोड़े पे बैठ के जाना है, यार अभी उसको ये प्रॉब्लम कैन बी इजीली सॉल्व्ड बाय इफ टू कास्ट ग्रुप गेट टुगेदर एंड से हाँ भाई वी विल वर्क आउट अ कॉम्प्रोमाइज एंड वर्क इट आउट, राइट.
तो इंटर कास्ट खाप्स काउंसिल्स things like that should come up, institutions आने चाहिए.
Yeah, because see, all social groups modernize, whether you like it or not. Today, somebody who looks backward will, once he watches the neighboring guy change, he will also change. Today, a khap person में girls should not carry mobiles बोलेगा. लेकिन कल जब देखते हैं कि और बाहर के पंचायत वाले लोग सब गर्ल्स कैरी कर रहे हैं और फिर वो लोग प्रोग्रेस कर रहे हैं और उनकी इनकम बढ़ रही है, तो वो भी देखेगा हाँ भाई हम हमारे इसको पीछे बैकवर्ड क्यों रखें. सो सोसाइटी चेंजेस बाय watching each other. So you should not jump on them because today they said we will ban mobiles. Like same thing with say Ayyappa temples, right? Sabarimala has a unique tradition, but every other Ayyappa temple doesn't do discrimination. So at some point, even Sabarimala on its own might change. There is no need for a court to quote some, Article 17 untouchability. Untouchability का problem नहीं है. हाँ?
बिल्कुल.
Yeah, because it's you could say a way the way the deity has been conceived, and you have to accept that. And over a period of time, traditions change. So traditions can be changed if they want. So for example, at some point, if all the women around Sabarimala say, "Look, we are believers in this deity, we would like some access." So the priest can themselves say, "Okay, यार महीने में एक बार आप आके करो." फिर after 10 years, that also would have changed. This court coming and saying that ये पहले जबरदस्ती ये करो is what destroys societal coherence.
एक और जो बहुत दिक्कत है धार्मिक नेशनहुड की तरफ जाने में, एक वो है कि जो हमने सेकुलरिज्म की बात की, डिस्क्रिमिनेशन की बात की, एसिमेट्री जो है उसकी बात की, लेकिन आप देखिए कि जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है आर्टिकल 26 से लेकर आर्टिकल 30 तक जिस तरीके से इंटरप्रिटेशन हुआ है, जिस तरीके से वो लिखा गया है, इट्स माइनॉरिटेरियनिज्म बेसिकली. तो वो इक्वल राइट्स की जब कोई बात करता है हिंदूज़ के लिए, तो लोगों को लगता है कि तुम 80% 85% हो, फिर भी तुम इतने इनसिक्योर कैसे हो रहे हो कि इक्वल राइट्स की बात कर रहे हो.
बेसिकली प्रॉब्लम है कि आर्टिकल्स 25 to 30 मेक सेंस अकॉर्डिंग टू मी. मैं ये बुक में नहीं लिखा है, लेकिन मैं कहता हूँ कि इफ़ यू आर एक्चुअली अ हिंदू राष्ट्र, then it makes sense to give these guarantees to minorities. हम हिंदू राष्ट्र होने के बाद भी हम आप चाहते हैं कि आपके राइट्स हो. अभी हम हिंदू राष्ट्र नहीं हैं और उसमें क्या हो गया कि 25 to 30 has become special rights only for minorities. वो उल्टा हो गया. There was an assumption that 80% will manage, but we are not a nation conceived through the Western majoritarian concept. वहाँ पे क्या है कि if you belong to a certain religious group, you're considered a major. Like Catholics and Protestants are all the time discriminating against one another in Europe after the Protestant change. But in India, it was not like that. Every sampradaya had his own thing. So we are actually a group of huge minority religions, which each of them trying to establish their own thoughts. And we are only loosely called Hindu in the sense. So my formulation is that there are 80% are Hindus. 80% are Hindutva, in the sense that there is a Hinduness in all of them. But Hinduism as one single religion actually is not correct. You know, it is not a religion as defined by the West. It is a common acceptance of a Hindutva that even formulates an idea that there is something on Hindutva.
कोई ऐसा तो है नहीं कि 80% एक ही आइडेंटिटी से अपने आप को देखते हैं।
Correct.
अगर ऐसा होता तो फिर कोई मतलब कांग्रेस की सरकार ही कहीं नहीं बन पाती, तो पॉलिटिक्स में भी वो रिफ्लेक्ट होता, बट ऐसा तो है ही नहीं। तो सब लोग यहाँ पे भी जातियाँ हैं, उसमें भी आप देखिए अपर कास्ट, लोअर कास्ट, SC ST, उसमें डिविजन्स कितने हैं विद इन दैट कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी। OBC इज आर्टिफिशियल दिस थिंग, तो उसमें आप देखिए कि किस ऊपर की जाति जो पहले ऊपर थी अब नीचे थी, वो सबको एक साथ क्लब कर दिया गया है। पॉलिटिकली डोमिनेंट कम्युनिटीज आर बेसिकली OBCs, तो उनको एक साथ कर दिया है। तो दिस डजंट मेक एनी सेंस, दिस क्लबिंग ऑफ ऑल इनटू वन। इसलिए संप्रदाय का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है वो अगर आ जाए, देन यू कैन से कि हाँ सभी वो भी माइनॉरिटीज के तरह काउंट करना चाहिए।
करेक्ट, एब्सोल्युटली। और दूसरी बात यह है कि व्हेन यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट जातीज, बिकॉज ऑफ इकोनॉमिक सर्कमस्टांसेस एंड जियोपॉलिटिकल चेंजेस, सम ग्रुप्स विल कीप राइजिंग, सम विल कीप फॉलिंग। बिकॉज अगर लेट्स से आज हम से जर्नलिस्ट के एक जाति बना दें, हाँ, और कल चैट GPT आ गया और 90% ऑफ जर्नलिस्ट आर आउट ऑफ अ जॉब, तो आप क्या करेंगे? तो फिर सडनली जर्नलिस्ट की जाति नीचे गिरेगी और कोई राइज होगा कि वो क्या है, AI
अभी तो गिर गई है सर जर्नलिस्ट।
हाँ वो तो है, मैं कह रहा हूँ कि सपोज अगर हमारा एक वोकेशनल सोशल ग्रुप था,
पहले आप हायर सोशल स्टेटस पे होते हैं 20 साल पहले।
हाँ 20 साल। अभी क्या बोलते हैं, सब लोग समझते हैं कि जर्नलिस्ट सारे सबसे नीचे गिरे हुए हैं। इसलिए वो अभी, लेकिन AI प्रोग्रामर हैं तो आप ऊपर कास्ट जाति बन गए। इसलिए वो जाति ऊपर नीचे होते रहता है बिकॉज ऑफ इकोनॉमिक सर्कमस्टांसेस, चेंजेस इन टेक्नोलॉजी, को बहुत कुछ हो सकता है, राइट। इसलिए व्हेन यू फॉल यू ट्राई एंड सी हाउ यू कैन लिफ्ट योरसेल्फ अगेन। सो इट्स अ कांस्टेंट साइकिल वेयर यू हैव टू दिस परमानेंट आइडिया दैट one jati is always on top or at the bottom never happens. You know, if you look at a lot of say Brahmin communities today don't exist in South India because they all emigrated. Now they उस पर वहाँ पे कास्ट खोप दिया US में, trying to pretend that they all are some.
अभी वही चल रहा है
सिएटल में जो हुआ,
कास्ट के ऊपर इतनी सारी बातें हो रही हैं।
करेक्ट, वो कास्ट वर्ड बैन करना चाहिए। इवन आई यूज इट बिकॉज इट्स इजी टू यूज, बट we should talk about jatis. Jatis are real and they will always keep forming. अभी एक नए जाति आ रहे हैं called LGBTQ, okay? और QIA से वो अल्फाबेट पूरा खत्म हो जाएगा, लेकिन वो जाति रहेगी। So my point is L और G, they are not completely discrete categories. They are, वो है, ठीक है, वो सब
अलग अलग हैं, फिर भी क्लबिंग हुआ है, जैसे OBC में हुआ है।
करेक्ट। So this is stupid, but we are still हम करते रहते हैं। और नई जाति सिस्टम क्या है कि the true upper caste people are the Harvard Ivy League professors and academics. They will decide what you should say, what you should eat, what you should not do. I mean, they are saying that you cannot use these words. Okay. आजकल basic differences between men and women, they said no, there is no such thing. Okay. वो कहते हैं कि वो there is no women, no gender exists.
Common bathrooms.
वो सब है। और suddenly एक ट्रांसजेंडर वाला लेडीज बाथरूम में घुस गया और फिर वो बोलते हैं you cannot question his gender, he believes he belongs here. So the problem is that
depends on which side of bed you are waking up on.
Whereas we have a more relaxed attitude. We realize that, like our concept of Ardhanarishwar, basically you are saying that you have masculine and feminine qualities in different proportions, each individual, right? So it's not 50-50. Like a macho guy may be 90% male and 10% he may have feminine qualities, and there may be a ultra feminine lady who may have very few this thing. So these are a product of genetics and social upbringing. These categories create, you know. So you can choose your gender in that sense from a very dharmic perspective, without thinking that suddenly you become a new category. You know, अभी क्यों हो गया अभी मैं, ऐसा नहीं है।
बिल्कुल। तो ये सर जैसे धार्मिक नेशन के जो कोर कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं, वो 4-5 कोर कॉन्सेप्ट्स क्या होंगे? धार्मिक नेशन बोलें या हिंदू राष्ट्र बोलें, जो भी।
So 3-4 basic points. 3 are core and 2 are temporary. Okay, meaning Two or relate, the last two I'll mention separately. They relate to current threat perceptions for which we need to change. Otherwise, you डूबने के बाद आपको फिर वापस नहीं ला सकते हैं. इसलिए वो ही problem है. So the three core concepts I would say are: one, dharmic is not related to religion. It is related to pluralism and acceptance of pluralism. So even if you are a Muslim or a Christian, you can be a dharmic, provided you don't have a binary approach to religion कि मेरा God है तो बाकी सब गलत है. So you by all means believe in your God, nobody is stopping you. So don't do that. The second concept of thing is you have to separate your national interest from your ideas like ummah and things like that. See, the dharmic thing, this is the ridiculous situation where a Hindu cannot speak in support of another Hindu, but a Muslim can speak any amount of ummah and even bring pressure from them to change policies here. So this concept you have to give up of ideas like ummah and that kind of thing, because that creates extraterritorial loyalties. And actually we can destroy dharma here because basically it's an anti-dharmic idea. You know, you can have a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam idea that everybody is one family ultimately, but first protect your family, then your Kula, your Jaati, and then your nation. Then you talk about others, right? यहाँ पे everything is falling apart and you suddenly want to accept you have to fight for Palestinians and Uyghurs. वो सब हमारा काम नहीं है. तो वो उनको रहने दीजिए, उनको जहाँ पे जाना है करने दीजिए. आप यहाँ की बात कीजिए. You should become dharmics.
बिल्कुल.
Yeah, and third thing, see, dharma is the only basis on which civilization and plurality can persist. The Abrahamic idea is wrong. So dharma needs to spread. The idea of dharma not as religion, but as acceptance of diversity. You know, today's diversity merchants are actually promoting a binary that if you don't accept our system of categorizing you as LGBTQ or liberals and conservatives and things like that, then the world is going to be there. So they are actually being far more Brahminical in the negative sense, where वो बोलते हैं कि मैं decide करूँगा आप कौन है और आपको क्या करना चाहिए. So this dharma does not mean that. It means that the idea of acceptance of diversity and having a more cooler attitude towards difference and diversity, the true nature is through dharma, not through the Western concept of diversity, which is actually promoting some kind of divisiveness rather than diversity with acceptance. You know, so the word tolerance doesn't exist in our idea. Word blasphemy doesn't exist in our thing, because we say, ठीक है यार कुछ बोल दो. Today we can abuse our gods once in a while. Us, I mean, I'm talking about Hindus. यार गाली दो, क्या है यार तूने मुझे यहाँ बिठा दिया सड़क पे और मैं खा नहीं पा रहा हूँ. Or you can talk like that to God, you know, but no Christian or Muslim talk like that to Jesus or Allah, right? So that point where you treat your gods like part of your family, as somebody whom you can complain to. God is your higher self. So you can talk to him the way you want to.
बट एक वीकनेस भी है कि हम जब दूसरे भी इस तरीके से डिसरिस्पेक्ट करते हैं या एक तरीके से ब्लास्फेमी करते हैं, तो मतलब हमारे गॉड्स के नूपुर शर्मा केस में वही हुआ.
करेक्ट.
वो उसके खिलाफ बोल रहा था, शिव जी के खिलाफ, और फिर रिटेलिएशन में नूपुर शर्मा ने वो बोला. लेकिन हमारे तरफ से, सोसाइटी की तरफ से कोई रिएक्शन नहीं आता है. ऐसे बहुत सारे केस हुए हैं, कितने आइडल्स तोड़ देते हैं, अभी भी आते हैं सोशल मीडिया पे पोस्ट डाल के. तो मतलब एक वीकनेस भी है हमारी सोसाइटी की, बहुत कुछ. क्योंकि जबकि कास्ट का मान लीजिए कोई फिगर हेड है, कोई कास्ट का कोई फिगर है कि भाई जैसे हिस्टोरिकल फिगर है, राजपूत्स का हो गया, जाट्स का हो गया, या कोई और कास्ट का है, अगर उनके खिलाफ कुछ बोल दो तो पूरे कौम सड़क पे आ जाएगी. लेकिन हिंदुइज्म रिलीजियस फिगर्स के खिलाफ आप कुछ बोलोगे तो नहीं आएंगे.
सी वन मोर थिंग इज, आइडियली हमारे इसमें ब्लास्फेमी लॉस नहीं है, बट वी डू स्टिल हैव 295 वो सब है, लेकिन इफेक्टिव ब्लास्फेमी लॉ है. सो लेकिन उसमें क्या होता है कि दिस इज वेयर अ धार्मिक अप्रोच इज स्टिल द राइट अप्रोच. दैट इज व्हेन यू यूज, सी dharma emphasizes both rights and duties, right? So speak with restraint is an important category in dharma. So whereas in Abrahamic things they have absolute things, absolute freedom of speech. If you go to that Sweden, that Paladin fellow, who's that Rasmus chap wants to burn the Quran and all that kind of thing.
Great Wilders.
Huh?
Great Wilders.
No, that is in Holland.
Okay.
Yeah, that is different. But I'm talking Sweden had a riots in April.
Okay.
Because his name was, I think, some Erasmus Paladin, some name like that. He wanted to do that, saying, I have absolute right to freedom of speech. Well, we don't have the concept that we need to abuse any other religion. That is an Abrahamic concept. Their concept of blasphemy comes that I can abuse you, but you cannot abuse me. So the whole point is we need to, when you look at rights balanced by duties, you will not abuse anybody else's views. You can have differences, but you will never abuse. Huh? So in the Nupur Sharma context, I think she reacted emotionally to slander of her gods. That is what she was opposed to. So in that sense, it was not unfair on her part to have broken out angrily. Right?
बिल्कुल.
But we didn't support her because Hinduism normally does not want you to be abusing gods.
नहीं, बट मासेस में तो काफ़ी सपोर्ट है.
Correct.
वो तो है.
Oh yes, absolutely.
सर अभी 2 स्ट्रीम्स हैं, एक तो धार्मिक नेशन ऑर्डर, एक
अच्छा, one more two things. Two things on
2
which,
टेम्परेरी जो चीज़ हैं.
See, I think we have always been a missionary religion, but our missionaries were trying to talk about great thoughts. When you have Adi Shankara, he said, my idea Advaita, right? He wasn't trying to create a new religion out of it. He was saying this is the highest thought. My own community, we had Ramanujacharya. He said, great thoughts must be given to everybody irrespective of caste or jati, right? So that's why there is a statue of equality in Hyderabad based on his teachings. Okay, that is a Ramanujacharya. Then there are all kinds of saints have come here. From Vivekananda to Chaitanya Deva to Basava. Some people worked against caste-based inequities. All those things are there. So we were always missionary in that sense. But we were not missionary in the sense of trying to gain conversions or prevent people moving out. Right? That thing, as long as the Abrahamic religions don't give up those expansionist, imperialistic dreams of establishing...
Zealotry.
Yeah, the zealotry but their universalism is that everybody must think like us. So which is stupidity. I mean, where is diversity if everybody has to think like you? Huh? So that as long as the threat is there, you need to become partially a missionary religion, which you have to look at numbers and demography. So in that sense, once it's achieved that Christianity and Islam become sensible dharmic faiths rather than Abrahamic faiths, where everything is 1 or 0. If you're not 1, you're 0. So that is their problem. So till that thing happens, we got to do that. The second thing we need to do is, I think we need to create caste-based consensus. So which is also temporary, I think, because ultimately we have to realize that people will grow according to merit and people will can exit or enter any social group. In the meantime, because these fault lines are being used against us, and because India has a unique problem where there is only one Hindu nation, and even that is a damn secular nation, right? Whereas there are 100 plus Christian nations, there are 50 plus Muslim nations, and many of them theocratically so.
Yeah.
So if suppose you throw one stone at a church, some drunk fellow may have done that, then the whole world jumps on us saying attack on Christians in India.
2015 में वही हुआ था दिल्ली में.
2014-15 में वही हुआ था, right? So एक कहीं पे एक lynching हो गया, सडन लिंचिस्तान हो गया पूरा. Look at 1.4 billion people में अगर 15-20 instances happen like this, then the whole country, whole thing gets defamed. So which is why I think we need to make sure that we reduce our caste and other base conflicts and unify and defend ourselves. The last thing, you see, another thing is also the narrative. You know, which was you remember, can you answer this honestly? Which was the first lynching reported globally from India?
I think it was in 1999.
No, I'm talking about post-Modi.
Post-Modi?
Yeah.
Akhlaq?
See, you're wrong. So I'll tell you. Muhammad Akhlaq happened in 2015 second half. But the first lynching of a Muslim happened in Baptist majority Nagaland. A guy called Muhammad Siraj, who had apparently had some relations with a Naga girl, and she later on accused him of molesting or something. He was put in jail. So this Naga mob, Christian mob, went and took him out of jail, stripped him naked, public, killed him. They took him out of jail, by the way, he was already in jail. Okay? उसको पकड़ के उसको lynch करके मार डाला. Okay? This was the first lynching. It was far earlier than Akhlaq. So why don't we remember this? It is never after all, India, Nagaland is not Lynchistan, right? For the size of the state, one lynching is more than 20 lynchings elsewhere in the country.
आई थिंक सर एक बार 2012 में जब निर्भया वाला एपिसोड हुआ था उसके बाद भी एक ऐसे ही असम में हुआ था.
करेक्ट.
लिंचिंग.
करेक्ट.
उसको भी ऐसे ही मतलब stripped him naked and lynched him.
So what really thing is, our problem is different. This lynching and all happens largely because there are cow protection laws and they
are not enforced.
They are not enforced, and so people use private means to get it. But it's not only about cows. You do a Google search on, say, man beaten for stealing goat, beaten to death for thing, man beaten for stealing chicken, or say mob thrashes person who ran over a traffic signal.
Road rage में तो road rage lynching हो रही है.
Yeah. So we are that way because the arm of the law doesn't reach that. And public passions feel that this is the only way to bring somebody to justice. So this is the fundamental problem, not that community A is being beaten up by community B. But the narrative is always the other way around.
सर इसमें दो स्ट्रीम्स अब हमारे जा रही हैं. एक तो ये है कि धार्मिक नेशनहुड, एक जो आपने कॉन्सेप्ट दिया है. एक ये है कि वोक लिबरलिज्म. दो एक मेन स्ट्रीम, मतलब वोक वाला मेन स्ट्रीम नहीं है, बट आप देख रहे हो कि कैसे एलीट सर्कल्स में साउथ दिल्ली, साउथ बॉम्बे टाइप्स और भी एलीट, चाहे जर्नलिज्म देख लीजिए, चाहे टीचिंग में भी आजकल स्कूलों में जिस तरीके से कोर्सेज में ये सब लाया जा रहा है वोक कॉन्सेप्ट्स. तो इसमें आपने एक बहुत अच्छा लास्ट में एक लिखा है, तो मैं पढ़ना चाहूँगा. इन द नेम ऑफ प्रोटेक्टिंग इंडिविजुअल ह्यूमन राइट्स, लिबरलिज्म हैज़ डग इट्स ओन ग्रेव बाय डिस्ट्रॉइंग द कम्युनिटी ऑन विच द इंडिविजुअल डिपेंड्स फॉर मेकिंग सोशल लाइफ मीनिंगफुल. ये एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है सर, क्योंकि सब कुछ एकदम इतना एक्सट्रीम इंडिविजुअलिटी में उसको चैम्पियन करना, सिर्फ इंडिविजुअल राइट्स के बारे में बात करना और कम्युनिटी का राइट और जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज़ हैं उसको बिल्कुल दरकिनार कर दिया जाता है. तो इसके बारे में, इसके क्या मतलब कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस होने वाले हैं?
See, the reason why Western society is falling apart is because they have emphasized individual rights to an extreme level. Because normally what happens is the pact between individual and community is part of the maintenance of law and order. Because when the community restrains its individual by giving him a sense of community and yet controls him, saying, yaar, is सीमा से बाहर मत जाओ. Right? एक लक्ष्मण रेखा देती है, don't behave beyond this. So the community exercises a level of control over the individual. Sometimes it can be oppressive.
And it is socially.
It is socially. It is not done.
It's not enforceable legally.
Yeah. It is not like beating up somebody.
Yeah.
Right? And this is how but what happens is when there is no community and you have destroyed the legitimacy of all communities, the only two left are state and individual. So then what will happen? State doesn't know the individual because everybody is a number or something. So in order to protect the number, the state invades every aspect of privacy. Then it takes more power on itself. So all the intermediary law enforcement things which do it through subtle social means are lost. So the state becomes all powerful and the Indian individual ultimately become powerless.
And there is just transactional relationship.
And this is why the individual, when cut off from community, what is happening in the US? Gun laws, they are taking all AK-47s and shooting 30 people for no reason at all. I mean, जिससे जाति दुश्मनी भी नहीं है, उसको जाके आप मार रहे हैं रोज. This kind of crimes are happening in the name of individuals. So the problem is society has fallen apart. We have not yet fallen apart, but we should try and see what is the danger on emphasizing this woke idea of rights as opposed to rights balanced by duties. Duties are usually enforceable not at the state level.
Yes, exactly.
But at the community level. So, and when communities implicitly say, look, ye karna chahiye, and it is done through tribe, family, Jaati, everything. So there are restraints. So you know that I should not cross this limit. But the minute there is only a state, and you're an anonymous figure, the state is an anonymous figure, then I have no stake. I can do anything I want. I can pee in the Air India aircraft.
Yeah. कोई स्पेस नहीं, कोई कुछ नहीं,
Yeah.
बस वही रिलेशनशिप रह जाता है इंडिविजुअल और स्टेट का, एंड स्टेट बिकम्स ऑप्रेसिव एंड यू हैव नोवेयर टू हाइड देन,
Nowhere to hide.
बिकॉज यू आर डिस्ट्रॉयड द ओनली प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ कम्युनिटी।
That's right.
सर आप, हमने इकोनॉमिक्स की बात की क्योंकि आपका एरिया ऑफ एक्सपर्टीज, जो कोर एरिया ऑफ एक्सपर्टीज़ है वो इकोनॉमिक्स है। तो हमारा जो इकोनॉमिक्स का जो चल रहा है, इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट और ग्रोथ, इसके बारे में थोड़ा बताइए, क्योंकि धार्मिक नेशनहुड तभी आएगा जब इकोनॉमिकली हम स्ट्रांग होंगे। अभी 3 ट्रिलियन शायद हो गए हम, तो कैसे आपको देखते हैं जिस तरीके से पॉलिसीज़ ला रही है सरकार और किस तरीके से ग्रोथ हो रही है पोस्ट पैंडमिक, रिकवरी काफ़ी हुआ है, तो आप कैसे देखते हैं फ्यूचर को 2030 तक?
बेसिकली इफ़ यू लुक एट द पास्ट, बिफोर 1991 हमारी ग्रोथ भी नहीं होती थी क्योंकि सोशलिज्म ने हमें पूरा दबा के रखा था। 1995 पर वो अनरिस्ट्रेन्ड एंड करप्ट ग्रोथ हो रहा था। ओके, उस पर एक लिमिट आ गई है अंडर मोदी जी, बिकॉज इवन दो आई थिंक सम मिस्टेक्स ही हैज़ ऑल्सो मेड, लाइक आई थिंक आई बिलीव दैट things like demonetization and going after too much corruption actually slowed down our economy, because what really happens is corruption or at the mass level, not at the episodic level where I do a deal with the government and make 100 crores, but at the level, let's say at the RTO you go, वो ड्राइविंग स्कूल में भी करप्शन है, आपको 500 रुपये देगा तो वो लाइसेंस मिल जाता है। नाउ when you deal with corruption, you have to deal with it very slowly, meaning over 10-20 years to eradicate systemic corruption like this, where I need to pay 100 rupees for a birth certificate, those kind of things, right? Eliminate it slowly through technology and all. So if you try to go too fast, you actually destroy jobs, because if you see that illegal ecosystem is providing a lot of jobs. So you have to slowly move that needle there, not try to tackle it abruptly. So these are, I think, some of the mistakes of Modi's first term. But broadly, the thrust is right. Directionally, it is correct that you have to reduce corruption through the use of technology and slow change and all that. That's happening. But the reverse side of the coin is that both demonetization and GST have now helped create a legitimate middle sector for India. Earlier, MSMEs went down because of destruction of the cash economy. Now they are rising again, but legitimately. So today, if you see, the fastest growing sectors are mid cap and small cap in the stock exchange, and the MSME sector is now begun growing again through legitimate finance. So the unintended benefits of demonetization, which was thought that you will remove black money, वो सब तो चलते रहेगा थोड़ा बहुत, लेकिन now you are getting a legitimate middle sector which is good for the jobs. So it's a slow process. It is not something that आज आ गया और बहुत सारे jobs हो जाएंगे. So it is happening because in Germany, if you know, there's something called the Mittelstand. That is the middle sector. They are highly innovative and technology oriented, and they got top class products, but they have a lot of jobs also.
Backbone.
So they are not mom and pop shops. That's also existing at the bottom, but all legitimate. So the middle sector is now, a legitimate middle sector is now being created. So which I think if you look at it over the next 5 to 7 years will create jobs, or good quality jobs. Okay. That is what that. But unfortunately, the fact that we reformed too late. See, last 70 years was the time when we should have emphasized labor growth. But we made capital cheap first before we made labor flexible. So, like say China, when they opened up after 1980s, the first thing they did was labor reform, which means you can employ labor at any price, sack any labor, and then their entire coast seaboard became a hub of jobs. Right? So all the foreign companies came because they could employ Chinese at low wages. Now their wages have gone up, but Chinese are correctly moving into automation and AI and all that. So now moving into technology is great. In our case, what happened was we moved into capital intensive growth right in the beginning, and in after 91 even faster.
We directly went to service sector,
because that's the only place where labor was flexible. Because in manufacturing, now we are having great trouble. You have to entice them through PLI schemes and things like that. But people have already got used to the idea that technology and capital can do as well as hiring more labor. So in manufacturing, you need manufacturing, but the jobs growth, the big growth in jobs that would have happened did not happen for us from 1947 to almost till 2005. The last time we had good growth in jobs was during Vajpayee's time, when he went and did major infrastructure investments. And after that, UPA claims high growth, but there are no jobs. What they did was they did massive spending schemes, so which is what also Modi has had to do, because jobs are not immediately coming. But now they've just begun to come, which is one reason why I think this government needs to be there at least for another 5 years. Because if you now disrupt it and bring in a UPA, you will have a complete failure of whatever economic policies are working for this country and started creating jobs. Because jobs don't happen in 3 to 5 year term that an election needs to happen.
तो अभी जॉब्स कहाँ पे, कौन से सेक्टर में ज़्यादा आ रही हैं?
See, jobs will come in all sectors. High quality jobs will come in manufacturing, but there will be very few, because it will be largely led by technology. Services is still the main area, but you need manufacturing, because to have growth in services, you need manufacturing. I mean, you can have an Amazon only if he's going to bring some physical product to you, right? Except in financial services, where there is no need for a physical product. In all other sector, there is a physical product that needs to come, which is why you need manufacturing. Not because manufacturing will directly create jobs, but all these services aligned to manufacturing will then create the service jobs. You know, so the jobs will be in services, but they will be aligned to manufacturing. So the physical product you need to produce. If it is all imported from China, then the jobs are there. So we will get good quality jobs in manufacturing, but not of the kind of number you need for your masses. But the services aligned to those manufacturing sectors will be out there. I mean, it will be in logistics, it will be in retailing, it will be in warehousing, all kinds of things you'll get. So there will be huge job growth. And of course, app-based services and all. Only thing is the app-based services are too skewed against labor. Meaning like if say Uber and all take 25-30% cut merely for putting you in touch with the customer.
But even still, they are making such big losses.
That's because, these app-based services should ideally be provided by the state. You know, like now you have that, electronic commerce interface, which the government is ONDC and all that. Now, if the same app-based service was made available, it doesn't cost much. You put 5,000 to 500 to 1,000 crores. You can provide
they just can't manage it. Look at Bheem UPI.
What you should do is you should privatize the management but provide the funding.
Even Paytm and Google, they are running such GPay. They are so much ahead.
Exactly. So government should not run the thing, but they should provide the capital, like roads. First set it up and then hand it over to the private sector to collect the fees. So that's what you need to do, because it's not huge cost when the government does it. But it is a huge cost if the government tries to run it. So you must do that and give 51% to the private sector and let them run it, because then they'll run it sensibly. The government problem is the minute it becomes everybody becomes the public sector employee. He has a problem. He has उसको 6 महीने का लीव चाहिए, वो चाहिए.
Contract पे करेगा नहीं. फिर बोलेगा permanent करो, फिर बोलेगा pension दो.
Yeah, and he wants OROP and all that.
Old pension scheme मांगेगा. New से भी पेट नहीं भर रहा है.
Correct. So that is the problem. So their problem is once you become state, then you have to be like the best quality employer with no link to productivity. If there is a link to productivity, it doesn't happen. So usme hai. So, but the thing is, these things, if you want, let's say, very low cost, low margin Uber, it should initially be funded by this is what we did in the vaccine, by the way. See, we did not produce, the government did not produce the vaccine. They helped isolate the virus, gave it to Bharat Biotech to do it. And certain others, they supported, right? But the actual development of all the 5-10 vaccines that were developed here were done by the private sector. So the government could afford to take that loss. Because
especially in these new areas where the new things are coming, technology is coming.
Exactly. So in pharma, for example, you have to be government-led. I mean, you can support private sector research. Say our big areas, things like TB, those are the areas where you need new drugs and new kinds of things to control or eliminate the disease. So the Western guys are not going to do about TB because they don't have TB. So he's not going to spend on it. And Indian companies can't spend 1,000 crores on developing anti-TB vaccine or cure for that matter. So government has to fund it, but it should fund it through the private sector. So basically what I'm saying is, say if the government actually indirectly owned Ola, then say my deduction for service fee is only say 3 to 5%, then thousands of jobs will be created. you know, because there are so many jobs available. But now if you think, because my high cost of capital, I'm going to take 25 to 30% and then give a where will that fellow afford to buy a car and run it and earn money out of it? That is why they are doing cheating all the time. They first take the call through Uber, then cancel it, and then say, "आप मुझे direct पैसा दे दीजिए." This is what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you are hopeful.
Yes, I am hopeful. I think we are just turning around, but we are paying the price for not reforming at the right time. Because at a time when
Those 10 years were a disaster.
not just 10, we have to talk about all the time till 2010. I mean, 1947 to 2000 were complete waste. 1991 onward, it's good because growth came. But growth did not come with jobs. It became highly capital intensive, whereas we should have been labor intensive. So that was the problem.
थैंक यू सर. इट वाज प्लेजर टॉकिंग टू यू. और जब से ये शुरू किया है तब से आपका थॉट कि आपको बुलाना ही है, तो आप आए. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank you, Aryan. Thank you.